Good morning, Teague Tigers. This is your lesson 10 for geometry. Are going to measure and draw angles. We are going to use a protractor. So if you haven't gotten yourself a protractor, it would be so much fun if you did. That way you can use it and do some measurements. So today we're going to measure angles using a protractor, and we're going to draw angles with a given measure. That is going to be our objective for today. So let's take a look and see what we have to do. This is task A. Task A gives us a protractor. We have one ray right here and another ray here and a point that connects both of the rays. So the question we want to pose is, what is the correct measure of the angle shown below? Well, how do you know? What is an incorrect measure of this angle, and what is a possible mistake that can take place when using a protractor to measure this angle? So what do you think? What is the measure of this angle? So I'll give you a few seconds to think about it and write it down in your math journal. Okay, so what did you say? Did you say 35-degree angle? That's correct. If you look at your two rays, you're going to look at the base ray, the one at the baseline, the one pointing at the 0, which is this ray right here. And so it's going to tell you whether you're going to use the inner scale or the outer scale. And that's what's tricky about a protractor. You have numbers that are on the outside that start on the left with the 0 and the 10 and the 20. And they go all the way on the outside to 180. That's the outer scale. But then you have numbers that start on the right side with the 0 and the 10, 20, 30 degrees. They go all the way across, but on the inside to 180. So that's called the inner scale. Based on this angle, based on this ray, it's pointing to this 0 on the right side. So I'm going to use the inner scale. So I'm going to start here with 0, 10, 20, 30, but then my angle, the second angle, stops between the 30 and the 40. So ask yourself, what number is between 30 and 40? And yes, it's 35. So this angle would measure 35 degrees. A possible mistake that can take place when using this protractor is if a student started on the left side with the outer scale and counted 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, all the way to 145 degrees. So if you said 145 degrees and started on the left with the outer scale, it would be incorrect. That's why we have to look at the bottom baseline so that we can tell which side we're going to use. Now, this is an easy way of finding the angles. There are other situations that are a little tougher. So let's keep going. We are now going to look at different angles, and we're going to use our protractor. This is the best part about angles. First, I want to show you all the different types of protractors that you can find at the store or in school. You could find some that are colored. You can find some that have a straight edge so that you can draw your angle in a straight line. These are very nifty. You have many tiny little baby protractors as well. And this belongs to one of my students named Camilla. And she uses it every time we talk about angles, measuring angles. Here I have a stencil that has a protractor as well with different shapes, and it has rulers and figures. So this is another type of protractor. They come in different shapes and sizes, but the one I like to use is the black and transparent one. Be careful because sometimes, since it's transparent, you might position it here, but the numbers are backwards. So make sure that you have it facing the right way. Like I said, you have your outer scale with the outer numbers where it starts on the left side, and then you have your inner scale that starts on the right side, and then you go over to the other. So we're going to be measuring some angles. And this is actually going to be one of your assignments, but it's okay if we do some of them together. You can do the bottom two by yourself. So I see that I've got my two rays. This is my point, and I want my point to be right inside, right on the baseline. And there's usually a hole right there and a line so that I can make it nice and straight. I've got my angle, it's facing to the right. So I know that I'm going to be starting with the inner scale, and I'm going to go all the way to this ray. So here it goes, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Remember, it's the inner scale, 80, 90, 100, 110. So this angle right here measures 110 degrees. And I want to say I'm just using my strategies. I want to say that this is an obtuse angle. Okay, let's take a look, see over here. So this is my next one. This is my baseline. I want to trace this because I want to be able to see it whenever I do my measurement. Here is my protractor. I put the point right on that baseline that has a hole, and it's still pointing to the right. So I know that I'm going to be using the inner scale. So right here, it's going to be, let me position it right. 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 degrees. So this angle is a 50-degree angle, and it is acute. Well, let's go ahead and do one more. How about this one right here? I think I'm going to move my paper to where this ray is in a straight line. I've got my point here, and I'm not going to trace my angle, my lines, my rays, because I didn't feel comfortable last time. So I put the point right in the little hole right here on the baseline, and it looks like my arrow is pointing this time to the left. Here it was pointing to the right. Here it was pointing to the right, but now it's pointing to the left. So I need to start on the 0, 10, 20. I'm going to use the outer scale to measure my angle here. Okay, so here it goes. My measurement here is either 19 degrees or 20 degrees. So I'm going to go with 19 degrees. This angle here is 19 degrees, and it is acute. I'll just put an A for acute. 110 degrees, 50 degrees, and I will challenge you to do this last one on your own. So let's talk about angles, continue talking about angles. And let's say that we have this one right here. Okay, so if I have this angle, it's just like the one I just did. It's got a protractor, so I don't even have to get one. And I can do my strategies here. There is a left and a right. So if you don't know your left from your right, you can always go like this with your fingers. And which is the correct L? This is how I would write an L. So this is my left side, and this would be my right side. And that's how I know left from right. So this here is on the left, which means I'm going to use the outer scale. One strategy I can also use is that I can highlight the outer scale numbers: 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, and it's between 120 and 130. So what do you think it would be? Yes, this angle would measure, and I'm going to put my little arch here, 125 degrees, which is obtuse. And I started on this side, on the left side. Let's take a look-see and see another example. This one here, I don't need a protractor, even though I keep wanting to use this mini one, this little baby protractor. And if I did use it, it would go right here and it would give me the exact same measurement. So on this side, it looks like I'm starting on the right. My ray is pointing to the right. So I'm going to use the inner scale. So I would use my highlighter and highlight 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. and it stops in the middle of 60 and 70. What number is in the middle between 60 and 70? Yes, 65 degrees right here, and it is an acute angle because it's less than 90 degrees. So highlighters, very useful. Now, let's take a look at this angle because you will be seeing angles that are like this, and they don't start at the zero. So that makes them a little bit tricky, but you are going to know how to do this. You are going to know the strategy for finding the angle when it is not right at the baseline. And to do this, this is what you are going to start with. You're going to tell yourself, I'm going to use the outer scale. Okay. So my outer scale is going to be the numbers right here. My outer scale is going to be the 110 and the 60, which I will subtract. Okay, that is how I find the measurement of this angle. Outer scale, the race pointing at 110, the other race pointing at 60, and this is where I'm going to find my measurement. If I want to add to check, I can do 60 plus 50, and I get the same answer. So I did subtract correctly. This is a 50-degree angle, and it is acute because it is less than 90 degrees. So remember, subtract using the outer scale. Now you could use the inner scale if you want, and that would be a little different. That would be 120 minus the 70, because that's where it's pointing at. And you can do the same thing. And you would still get 50 degrees as a measurement if you use the inner scale. But be careful. You have to make sure that you stick to one and not do both of them unless it's not showing on your answer choices. Okay, one more, and I promise you this will be the last one right here for you to practice. And I want you to look at this. I want you to press pause, and I want you to find the measurement of this angle using the outer scale. So pause it, and when you're ready, you can press play again. Okay, friends, so what did you come up with? Let's do our highlighting first. We're going to highlight the outer scale from this ray to this ray. Now we're going to write it down. This is pointing to between 90 and 100, which is what? Yes, 95. And this is pointing between 50 and 60, which is 55. 0, 4. This angle measures 40 degrees. And I stuck only to the outer scale. What if I wanted to use the inner scale? I could, but I would make sure that I don't mix them up. But if I was to use the inner scale, the number between 120 and 130 is 125, and the number between 90 and 80, or 80 and 90, is 85, and I would subtract this right here. And it would still be 40 degrees. So this angle right here measures 40 degrees, and it is acute. Okay? It is acute. That is how I measure my angles using any type of protractor that I have available. Okay, so I hope you go to the store and get yourself one because they're very useful. Now I want to show you the next activity, the next assignment that you're going to do on your own. You're going to have some cards, and it says, pass it please, cards. And you're going to use your protractor to measure the angles. So let's say that I'm doing this angle right here. I've got my point and I've got my two rays. This is my first ray and this is my second ray. So how would I measure this? I would put my point right in the middle here on the baseline with the hole, and I would measure it. Yikes. Now this is pointing at the 0 and this is pointing at the 0. So I want to start with the outer scale and I want to start on the left side. And the left side starts here and it goes all the way over to here. So what would this measurement be? Yes, it would be 180 degrees. And what would you call it? It would be called a straight angle or a straight line. A straight line measures 180 degrees. So then I would have one person make sure that I did it right and they would write their initials, but my initials would be these right here. So you would do the same thing with the next card. And I would suggest that you turn the card around so that you can have a base, the baseline with the ray, so you can measure it and always put your point in the middle. So these are the ones that you're going to do, and you're going to write the measurements on the line using your protractor. That's going to be your job. Make sure you start at the 0, either on the left side or the right side, so that you can see what it is you have to, which scale it is you have to use. So then the third activity, the third assignment that you're going to do will be the cool down. And this is the one you definitely have to turn in, and ask your teachers if you have to turn in the other two, the round robin and the pass the card, please. But this one is a definite, and we want you to make sure that you use your strategies, take out your highlighter and look at your rays and decide if you're going to use the inner scale or the outer scale. This is where you're measuring angle X, Y, and Z. Here it's asking you a not question. Which angle does not measure 23 degrees? So your job is to use your highlighter, write down the angle for F, write down the angle for G, H, and J, then check to see which one is not measuring 23 degrees. Use the strategy where you use the outer scale and you subtract. Then you have this one right here that says which angle has a measure that's closest to 95 degrees. So that's going to be really close to 90, but nope, it's going to go 5 degrees more, make it obtuse. Which one measures 95 degrees? And that's it. So that's what you would turn in. So Tigers, I hope you enjoy this lesson. I hope you learned from it. Use your protractor, use your highlighter, use your strategies, and I hope you do great. Have a great day. Bye-bye.